Is all truth relative? At the market the other day, one of the cashiers had a conversation with me. At one point, he made a statement that, well, truth is relative. I stared at him for a few seconds with a question like look on my face. Then I replied, your statement implies that relative truth is an absolute. He looked at me like, what? That's when it hit me. Our children are being taught truth is relative to your subjective position in life. Your personal viewpoint sets the tone for what is true and what is false. Let's look at this from a few areas. First, there are only three types of truth. One, absolute truth, which is unchanging. Two, objective truth, which doesn't depend on your viewpoint, but that of a disinterested party. And three, subjective truth, which is in your mind. Our students are being told that their opinions, beliefs, and social viewpoints set the standard for truth. But how could that be, since we all have different views on certain subjects, especially politics? They're basically being told truth is not an absolute. That's like saying 4 plus 5 equals 10. Unless you want it to equal 9 or 6, you decide. Mathematics is an example of absolute truth. Your viewpoint doesn't matter. So the cashier's statement, truth is relative, can't be true because mathematics is absolute. Okay, let's take an example from history. During World War II, Adolf Hitler had 6 million Jews killed. Notice I didn't say Hitler himself killed 6 million Jews. His words alone condemned all Jews as less than human, so killing them, men, women, and children, would purify the German nation. From Hitler's viewpoint, the truth was murder is okay if it is for the good. Is killing someone okay to you? Remember, soldiers fighting in a battle aren't committing murder. They are defending themselves from harm. So if you say killing is bad, are you or Hitler stating the truth? If Hitler is correct, then you killing someone for your benefit or good because they are inferior by your standards should be allowed, right? This is a perfect example of subjective truth. If that's the case, then the same principle, since it is subjective truth, should apply to all forms of evil like rape, torture, stealing, lying, cheating. You get my drift. By default, we compare these forms of evil to a truth, usually a law defined by biblical scriptures. Otherwise, there would be no true or false. Stealing, lying, cheating, rape, etc. wouldn't have a bad connotation because they wouldn't be compared to anything. But in fact, your conscience tells you that these forms of evil are wrong. This same subjective truth goes for governments and educators who place only their viewpoint on subjects and forget to point out an opposing view. They have relegated truth to their view only. My example here is the theory of evolution. Notice I didn't call it evolution. This theory has never been proven, just suggested and taught so often as truth that over the decades it has become truth to many. Just like a pathological liar tells the same lie over and over until, in his own mind, it has become truth to him or her. So much so that he or she could pass a lie detector test. The theory of evolution, even though never proven and with greater and greater flaws being pointed out, is still a theory, but taught as truth in most schools and universities. Neither the evolutionist nor scientist can explain how the many different types of grass, trees, animals, or people got here. They say that somehow something like an amoeba made it through the white-hot blast of the Big Bang, traversed the vacuum of space, landed on this planet while it was still molten in form, survived that, waited for water to appear, then climbed into a pond, became a fish, and then a land animal. Somehow it knew it needed to grow legs, although it didn't know what legs were, traversed the land in which somehow magically had oxygen, grass, trees, fruits, flowers, etc. Then on its own, decided to become an ape, for what reason they don't know, then finally decided it would develop into man and woman. According to them, all this from a one-celled amoeba with no brain. And this is taught as though absolutely true, when there are obvious flaws in this theory, too many to go into right now. So, isn't the teaching of evolution as the only way life began also a form of subjective truth? It's only from the evolutionist viewpoint. Why isn't creation being taught along with the evolutionary theory? If all truth is relative, then the relative truth of creation should be taught to give a student the right to decide for his or herself which is truth, correct? When you see a painting, you know there's a painter. And when you see a building, you know there is a builder. So when you see all the creations in nature, shouldn't there be a creator? Now let's take a glimpse at American politics. You have two major sides, conservatives and liberals. Each side believes passionately that their way is right. If you talk to a liberal, he'll tell you all the reasons the conservatives are wrong. If you talk to a conservative, he will explain the flaws in the liberal viewpoint. But which one is truth? It's hard to tell because all the lies they each throw out there to blame the opposition. But how do you know they are lies unless you have a truth to compare them to? If you take an objective viewpoint and toss out your personal stance, you can research and rationalize whether or not what is being said is true or false, regardless of which side you want to believe. Only then will the facts point to the truth. A scientific experiment is the perfect example of this type of objective truth. Scientists set out to prove whether something is true or false based upon the information they gather. So for centuries they believed the sun revolved around the earth or that the earth was flat. People eventually found ways to prove their theory either true or false. So is the earth flat? We all know the answer to that based on scientific discovery, just like gravity. You wouldn't go to the top of a building and shout, "Gravity is relative," and jump off, would you? We know the end result based on objective discovery would not be pretty. So is truth always relative? The only answer is no. A truth can be stated, but your experience doesn't change that truth. For example, two men can make this statement. Every day I get up from bed, go have my breakfast, go outside and work out for an hour, then go back inside to my room and read a book. The difference is their experience within that truth. The first man can come and go at will, but the second man is in prison. Finally, on what do the majority of the world's people base the truth? Christians and Jews base it on the writings in the Bible and the Torah. Muslims base it on the passages in the Quran. Either way, it all reverts to our ancestors and their God. The books in the Bible written by many divinely inspired people over thousands of years, yet more and more facts from the Bible are being proven by scientists and archaeologists every day. The Bible was written as a standard for truth, which we still use today to compare and devise our federal and state laws. The Bill of Rights and the U.S. Constitution, written by the founders of this nation, were based upon biblical principles. These principles were true thousands of years ago and are still true today. So my final question to you, is all truth relative? I hope you can see the answer now. No, it isn't.